What's up, everybody, and welcome to TinkTink.org interviews. I'm your host, Josh Wilson, here with my co-host, Chase Skidry. Joining us again today to talk about his upcoming game, Takedown, game designer extraordinaire and founder of Serellan LLC, Mr. Christian Allen. How are you doing today, sir?
Pretty good, guys. How you guys doing?
All right.
Pretty good.
Pretty honored.
Well, thank you.
First off, congrats on the successful Kickstarter campaign. And how valuable has that Kickstarter campaign been so far for helping you and your team realize your goals?
Well, thank you very much, and thanks to everybody that provided support, both the podcasts like yourself and various others throughout the campaign, and of course the folks on social media that really got the word out, and of course most thanks go to the Kickstarters that really put forth their money and their effort. And the Kickstarter has been hugely valuable. I mean, obviously money is a great thing to be able to pay people to build assets and to license technology and things like that. But just the exposure that the Kickstarter gave us, both within the industry to various different businesses and just to the wider audience, really opened up, I think, the game to a new group of eyes and a new group of people that got excited about it and came into our community and continue to come into our community.
Nice. So there was a collector's edition of Takedown that you could get, by donating enough money on the Kickstarter. Are there any plans on making that collector's edition available to people who are late for the Kickstarter campaign?
I think in the future, yeah, that'll be a possibility. The collector's edition is definitely going to be a limited run, and we're still we've got most of the rewards priced out, and actually are looking to make the final order of all that physical goods, but collector's edition is something that we're holding off on the physical order of basically how much it costs, and what's going to determine whether there'll be additional units will be basically how many we have to get and per cost of the unit. So if it's something where I'd have to go back and look at the Kickstarter numbers of how many people signed up, but let's just say 150. If there's 150 units that we had to do a print run of, it might be more cost efficient to do a print run of 500, and then we'd have extras available. People can continue to support the project. If they did miss the Kickstarter, we have a supporter program set up at support.serellan.com where you can actually buy merchandise and then at varying price levels and become a supporter. But so we'll have to see on that as far as the collector's edition. I do want to have a special one for Kickstarters. I mean, whether it's me writing a note and on a sticky note and sticking it into each one, we'll have to figure out what that looks like.
All right.
That'd be cool.
I would like that. So what's going to really set Takedown apart from other tactical shooters that have came out before? Like it's a tactical hardcore shooter. What is going to really make it tactical and hardcore?
Well, I think authenticity and realism are kind of the catchphrases that are easy to throw out, but a lot of games can say that they have that in various different forms. But I think what makes Takedown different and what gets people excited is that return, again, to some of those old school values that you see in games like Rainbow Six, the original, the SWAT series, even on console games like SOCOM. They stand apart from what we see as the current crop of shooters that are really going for the same audience. They're competing with each other in the same space. If we look at, obviously, Call of Duty, we look at Medal of Honor, we look at Battlefield, we look at Halo, those shooters really kind of cater to a very similar audience, which is why they very much compete with each other. Now, of course, they all have differences and different things that they do well. But when you look at Takedown, you look at it catering more to the player that and groups of players that coordinate and think and communicate and take their time where the situation is appropriate to take down a situation, whether it be an opposing team or the single player mission. And it's non-linear. That's a big thing too, non-linear.
All right. So you said that mod support is planned, but is it going to be out of the box or is it going to come later? And what tools will the modders have access to?
Well, one of the things that's come about, obviously since the Kickstarter has finished, is we spent quite a bit of time doing engine evaluations, and we looked at the three main engines that we looked at were Crytek, Unity, and Unreal, and we decided on Unreal Engine 3 as the engine that we're focusing our development on. And so, of course, right off the bat, the UDK for Unreal Engine is Unreal 3 UDK version is a free-to-download product that anybody can go and get. And so for base mod support for things like adding weapons and, base mod support as far as adding weapons, building levels and things like that, those should be supported mostly out of the box. Any custom work that we do, any custom tools that we build, we plan to support those as much as we can and release that content out for people to use. So I can't promise if there's something special that we build, whether it be shaders or something like that, that we can release it exactly on day one, but we will get that out as soon as possible post-launch. But we don't plan to be building a lot of that kind of stuff. We are, a gameplay company, and we focus on gameplay. That's what we want to build, not a lot of specific, shader technology or anything like that.
So you just mentioned you are using the Unreal Engine 3. Now, is this going to be a heavily modified version of that engine, or what?
We'll modify it where we need to. A lot of the power that Unreal has is in its stability, and of course, through scripting tools and modularity of level construction and things like that. There will be some custom stuff that we need to build in, through source code, especially on the AI side. That's going to be a lot of the work, and then we'll have to see on the multiplayer side as well if we put any specific features in for multiplayer spectating or anything like that for the competitive players. So there will be custom work that's going to need to be done. We're not just going to be using the straight, UDK version, purely using Unreal Script or anything like that. We'll be using the full version of Unreal 3.
All right. So during the Kickstarter, you could get, besides the collector's edition of Takedown, you could get a DMR free version and a version with DRM, excuse me. How's it going to be? Is it going to be like CD keys, or are you going to have a constant internet connection to play or stuff like that?
No, the idea with the DRM version is that we'll have a digital download version that you'll be able to just grab, probably straight from our website. So that's the plan, or possibly CD keys that we send out. Not exactly sure. Just the base version is, like, specifically you mentioned always connected to the internet. That's kind of against the point. We want to have a version of the game that you can just plug in and run. And we know that any kind of DRM that we try to put in, we're not planning to try to use any kind of crazy DRM on our own. Of course, some of the distribution services that we may use, digital distribution, have their own DRM, and we'd probably be required to use those. But we want to have a separate version that people can just get and have, and if they want to make copies of it to back up, make copies of it to back up. Of course, we're going to ask them not to make 10 copies and give them to their friends. But if someone wants to do that, it's not like we're going to try to stop them through some DRM that's just going to screw all the paying customers. So,
good to hear you are being nice.
Well, it's not really being nice. It's I mean, piracy sucks and it pisses everyone off, but our philosophy is that, we shouldn't punish the regular customer for what pirates are going to be able to do anyway. And right. If a company, if the major publishers can't come up with a DRM that doesn't A, stop piracy, and B, screw their paying customers, then I doubt we can either, so why bother?
So you're supportive of lands, but you don't like piracy, pretty much.
Yeah, when you work on something for a long time and you spend your your blood, sweat, and tears making it, you kind of hope people will pay for it in whatever form that takes. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to screw people. I was trying to play Raven Shield the other day here, and we were trying to play it on LAN, and I bought 5 copies of it, and every time we tried to boot it up on multiplayer, we had to re-put in our stupid CD key, and that's just retarded.
Yeah.
So again, it's not like I couldn't go get a CD key gen in about 5 seconds on the internet if I really wanted to crack it.
Wow, y'all booted up Raven Shield?
Yeah,
wow.
we did.
That's oh man, it's I haven't played in so long. God, I miss it so bad.
It's harder than you remember.
Oh man, man. Well, I played on console on RS3,
Hmm.
and when you're playing with a controller, like because of the lean glitch that was in the game, being able to walk while you lean, like doing it with a thumbstick was just like it was mean. Like it took a lot of skills. You had to have a very sturdy left thumb to be
Yep.
able to get good at the game.
Nice. But yeah, that's our basic philosophy is DRM is never successful and only hurts paying customers, and I'm not into that.
Yeah. Well, a question of mine is, okay, we know, it's coming out for PC, but is there still plans for consoles like PS3 and 360?
There is, yes. And in fact, we've been contacted by business partners that are specifically interested in the console version of the game, in being separate business partners on that, and possibly even physical distribution that people have contacted about on the console version of the game. So that's very exciting in that, once we get the PC version locked down, a lot of people have asked me about this, and I've said it multiple times, is that right now for us, and when we, launched the Kickstarter and started development, we still don't know what's going on with consoles. Nobody still knows for sure what's going on with consoles within the next year or so. So it's still a good business and development decision for us, being small and on still a shoestring budget, to keep things focused on PC, and then keep our options open and move on from there. So yeah, we are still planning on it.
So that gives a good time frame though to actually realize that if it does happen, it will be a year or two later.
Oh, I don't think it'll take that long. No,
Oh, you
a
don't
lot
think
of
so?
yeah, a lot of people have thrown out the year or two window. It shouldn't take that long to port the content. I mean, the engine works on consoles. That's another reason we made the decision for the engine, is that it works on
Yeah.
consoles,
Okay.
and most of it in my mind is adapting to the the UI. There's UI work to be done. We want to support gamepads on the PC anyway, so a lot of that work will already be done. But there's UI work to be done. There's adapting to the OnLive services. But it shouldn't take two years to port this to
Okay.
console.
All right. Well, I was just, maybe, there's a lot of business to go along with it, so it might take a while.
Yeah, I mean there's certification and all those things that go along, but those will be ongoing processes. We're not gonna,
Yeah.
it's not gonna be something where it's like, okay, PC's out the door, let's do console now. There'll be ongoing discussion with the console manufacturers once we have a better window into, what physical distribution looks like on the new consoles, what XBLA or PSN looks like, those kinds of things.
Do you predict for both, or just end up possibly just releasing for one of the consoles?
No, we plan for both.
Okay, that's good. That's great. Because PS3, it's hard to play a shooter on a PS3.
Yeah, and we're looking at other platforms as well. We're looking at OnLive. OnLive sent us some kits and the SDK. We're looking at Ouya whenever that
How
gets...
is OnLive turning out?
Surprisingly well from a player perspective. I was at Warner Brothers when Warner invested in OnLive and saw some of their earlier stuff, and I was actually pretty skeptical from a technology standpoint. I mean, a few years ago, it was like, yeah, we're going to stream games to, your TV, and it was like, yeah, really? Like AAA games? But just the other day, we got one here in the office. We got a PS3 and a Xbox and a OnLive, and I was playing BioShock on it, and it played really, really well. It looked good. It played good. It's a pretty neat little device. I mean, especially sitting, we got a cart over here, and there's the old school Xbox 360 and an old school PS3, and then this tiny little OnLive box sitting on top. So.
Oh, okay. Kind of off subject, I'm sorry, but do you think if like OnLive system, the popularity grew so much, do you think it could make shut out the consoles that actually use media disc?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem. I mean,
Because
OnLive is cool. I think it's all about the content that's on it, right? It's
that could that also could hurt competitive communities, the competitive scene of video games.
Yeah, I mean, it could split them up, right? If you have
Yeah.
multiple consoles vying for each other. But I mean, essentially, when you're playing on live, you're playing the PC version. I don't know about cross compatibility with other versions.
All right.
But I mean, it's a really neat service. I mean, people should at least check it out. Especially if you're running on a budget, they got a lot of pretty good games on there. And like I said, I haven't tried any competitive multiplayer on it. I should try that, but I had a really good single player experience on it.
I was really interested when I first saw On Live. I was very interested. Another question of mine is on Takedown. What can you say on the differences between the PC version, the PS3, and the 360 version? There's like a rumor, isn't there, Josh, about the PS3 version's going to be like somewhat like SOCOM.
Well, third person. I don't think that's a rumor. I think that's
it's gonna. Is it a rumor? Is it a rumor or is it
third person?
actually,
No. We're planning on third person for PlayStation. So that would be
third
one
person.
of the things that we would would change.
Well, I didn't know if it was a rumor or if it was official that it was gonna. Yeah, that's why.
Well, it is something I want to address, and I'm planning to do an interview with the real SOCOM guys here soon as well, because SOCOM fans, much like Ghost Recon and Rainbow Six fans, have seen their franchise, be changed a lot and go in a direction that I think
we dislike very much.
Yes, and by we, I assume you're a SOCOM fan as well. And it's really interesting because after once Zipper shut down, of course I hired some folks from Zipper and interviewed quite a few folks from Zipper, and it was really interesting because I was having a conversation with their community manager. Who I can't recall the name of, but one of the community managers, and he kind of told me the story about SOCOM, how he was really into SOCOM, and then he went and he got hired by Sony, and then he saw the franchise that he loved kind of get changed, and he really couldn't do anything about it. And anytime he said SOCOM and Sony, you could change those words with Ghost Recon and Ubisoft, because the kind of influence of the publisher on the franchise and the direction of the franchise and the players' feedback and the gamers and then the developers kind of stuck in the middle, caught in the middle, were kind of interchangeable. When you heard terms like broader audience and easier to play and not as hardcore and all those things, those influences that the publishers really wanted to see their franchises. And as we've seen, I think you've seen the reaction to obviously SOCOM 4 not be as positive as the earlier ones, and I'd argue that compared to earlier Ghost Recons, people they see a franchise, and I don't know what's going on with Rainbow Six right now after the
it's turning into the most terrible creation of all time of competitive video games. What's happening?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have no idea what's going on with Patriots, just that it's gone dark. I don't know.
It's the same thing. It's going to end up being the same thing as Vegas. That's the sad thing about it. That's what it's going to turn. They're keeping the third-person cover system where you can see from like in a God perspective, Right. And it's not how it's meant to be played. They're making it casual. It's too casual. And like they even they pushed what's that last Future Soldier. They pushed Future Soldier so hard to try to compete with like Call of Duty and games like that, and it's not working. The games were so competitive back then, and now that because of all these new cover systems that they've came up with, it's completely changed the competitive nature. Because if you really looked at Xbox Live on how like the rankings on what the most played games were, Rainbow Six 3 and Ghost Recon were like the most played on Xbox Live for a solid amount of years, from like all the way to like, I'd say like 2005, 2006, they were in the top like 3 for so long.
Yeah,
they were. Just the only thing that we competed with them was Halo 2, really.
Yeah, exactly. It would be Halo would be number 1, and then Ghost Recon 2 was number 2 for quite a long time.
And Rainbow Six, I believe, followed. I mean, there was a competitive push, and they threw it away. Like, they really could be there in sales if they would have kept to what was working. Don't fix what's not, failing for you.
Yeah, well, pretty much what I've heard from all the Rainbow and Ghost and SOCOM fans, and of course SWAT has just been killed by their publisher. So
Yeah.
the SWAT fans are just wanting anything. So
I'm from the Rainbow Six sort of community. That's where I come from the console. Like I played from like 2003 to 2005 with like a steadily active clan. We had like 150 wins and like 30 losses. We're like in the top 50 in the world.
nice. But yeah, so that's I forgot where we were, but yes.
Yeah. That's where we were. Yeah, I'm another thing. If the Josh, I think you're on the question. Yeah.
Well, about the PS3 with the third person thing. Now, will there be an option for the PC, PS3, and 360 to switch between perspectives? Like if I'm on the PS3 and I want to play it as a first-person game, do I have the option to switch that, and vice versa with the PC and 360?
From the feedback I've gotten and what we're looking into, definitely from the third person to the first person. The other way around in game, I mean, Rainbow had a third person option. Almost all servers, if it even was a server option, I believe disabled it because I don't ever remember playing multiplayer in third person. There's a difference in when you having worked on both first person and third person games, or even obviously Halo that had third-person views in vehicles and with carried weapons and such. There's an advantage. There's going to be an advantage in third person over generally someone in first person, because no matter what you do, you can
always. You can see how good cover you're in always,
Right. I mean, you can just try as hard as you want as a developer to make a camera system that compensates for that, but it's extremely difficult to do. So I wouldn't be an advocate of in the first person version to allow, especially in multiplayer, a third person view, possibly on replay or something like that. Which Rainbow had. It was very cool to be able to, in replay mode, to watch your guys move around in third person because it was just a better experience. That's the direction that we're taking.
So it just really boils down to balancing, I guess.
Well, fair balancing. Yeah, exactly.
I think
if everybody's playing third person, everybody's on the same. The same place, and if everybody's playing first person, it's on the same place. Where it starts to break down is like you mentioned earlier is when you have first person with a third person cover system, then the advantage is to use your third person cover system to look around the corner instead of leaning or peeking.
Yeah, because well, it's just obvious. It's completely obvious,
It is pretty obvious, yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's completely unfair. Like it's let me camp and let you make the move, and then I'll hide behind here when I can see you and come kill you. So right. It's so retarded. I don't even know why. The best third person I think system that was ever made, and I dislike third person systems, but I think the best one was on Ghost Recon 2. I mean, that was just. You can't get no better than that third person. It's just they did it so well, and being able to switch shoulders was just like, why can't they do stuff like that nowadays?
Well, they could. It's all about what the supposed demographic that you're going for. So
yeah, I'm Josh, the Linux.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned if there was a big enough demand for a Mac and a Linux version that y'all would see about doing that. How has the demand been so far?
Honestly, the demand was extremely vocal during the Kickstarter, and then has kind of dropped off. I haven't heard a lot from Mac and Linux gamers recently. Now that we have the engine choice, the development that we're focusing on, that'll make the kind of final call a lot easier. Off the top of my head, I don't want to say anything right now. I know we've looked into it, but but the inherent abilities of the engine to support the platform, we can make a decision earlier rather than later. But I encourage Mac and Linux gamers. I've read recently that Valve is making a push for Linux gaming, which is exciting. And we want to support as many platforms as we can support. And I think we're going to be sending the Kickstarter survey out shortly to get a handle on, to have people update their addresses and stuff to send out the tchotchkes. And we'll include a platform survey in that to find out what people are really interested in. So, but if you're Linux or a Mac gamer, I encourage you to, come out to the forums at Serellan.com and let people know, because I got a lot of messages from Linux gamers, or I got a lot of messages about Linux gaming. I don't know how many actual gamers there were, or just a lot of guys sending me Linux messages, but we would love to support it.
Nice. Now, for Takedown, are the single-player and multiplayer portions of the game, are they being developed side by side by the same team, or is one coming before the other, or are there two teams? How's it going to work?
No, it's being developed side by side. So as we work on our map that we're developing for alpha, we're developing it both for multiplayer and single player. Now there may be changes between multiplayer and single player where we need to block off areas in multiplayer to shrink the map if need be, or possibly open up some corridors. Although we've already went ahead and made changes to the map to support the nonlinearity of multiplayer. So there's not any dead ends or anything like that. Looking at choke points and things like that, so people can have multiple routes into objectives. But this is definitely the game systems. The whole crux of development is that the game systems will be transparent between multiplayer and single player. So your weapons will handle the same, character movements will handle the same. We don't want to get into situations where we're making compromises in one for the other, because from a gameplay development standpoint, one, that's a lot more resources, and two, we just need to make decisions for the game based on the gameplay, and those need to work both in multiplayer and single player as well.
Another quick question. As of right this second, do you know if y'all are going to support bots for multiplayer?
As far as adversarial bots, that one's still up in the air. Getting bots that are, single player AI, Tango AI is one thing, and even Team AI is one thing. Of course, that's a huge focus for us. Those things getting up and running. So bot AI that can play well and feel well, we'll just have to see how that goes. As far as replicating a multiplayer experience, it's a whole nother level of development, and it's especially difficult in our kind of game where as far as multiplayer bots, where you don't necessarily have we don't have necessarily weapon pickups or power-ups or things like that you can just have the bots run around the map and go for the power-ups, and then they are playing the game relatively well, because that's what you do in games with power-ups and stuff. You run the routes and do that kind of stuff. And so multiplayer bots are an additional challenge that would be lower on the priority list for us from a development standpoint than, say, single-player AI or just multiplayer in general.
I'm kind of off topic. I know how earlier you were talking about y'all booted up Raven Shield, and actually there's actually a competitive community still on that plays Rogue Spear.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I looked it up. I'd say about about like 8 months ago, I'd say. And there's a competitive community. It's called like Rogue Lives TK.tk. And they got literally, I think, around like 20-something, maybe 30-something clans actually playing a ladder together, and they still play the game. It's crazy. They figured out like how to find some website where they could have servers on. Like their servers
awesome.
are still up on.
I'll check that out. Kick their asses. That'll be great.
Yeah, you should. I was watching gameplay. They figured out like a place where you can download what is it, Blackhawk or whatever it is, for free. The expansion. What was the name of the expansion?
There's Urban Ops, there's Covert Ops, there was Blackthorn, and then
Blackthorn. Yeah, Blackthorn. My bad.
And then there was a version made in Korea that had a interesting.
out of all the versions that they could find, Blackthorn was like the best one that ran the best.
Yeah, it was, I think, the latest, so it would probably maybe support the best operating system or whatever.
Yeah. My question is, the multiplayer, how is things going to be handled in terms of like the lobbies and matchmaking? Will there be server browsing on console? I know for sure for PC there should be, but on console, will there be server browsing? And on console, are we seeing dedicated servers? For sure, I would think PC, but those kind of aspects.
Yeah, on PC, we're looking at the standard, kind of dedicated server and server browsing, and some of that depends on which online service we look at. On console, honestly, I have to delve into what that means. I mean, I've when I worked with a lot of online features on Ghost, of course, we had servers. You hosted a lobby and people could search for your lobby, or just join you. And I think that's the way to go. We're not going to be able to build a matchmaking service as robust as Halo's in that, Bungie. One of the reasons people look at matchmaking and go, we should totally do matchmaking, is because they look at Bungie's matchmaking service. Well, people forget how much time and effort has gone into that matchmaking service, and having seen it behind the scenes, it is a wonder of development and design and back-end support that has been built by Bungie and Microsoft over the years. And there's no way we're going to be able to match that on the console. And so, I think, matchmaking, if we do matchmaking, a lot of it would probably be dependent on the console, quick match services. Microsoft requires quick match, right? You can't not have quick match. It's a TCR that you have to have it, but it doesn't mean that you can't have user created lobbies and things like that.
Yeah. Well, that sounds good. No matchmaking. I think matchmaking's a great thing, but when it comes to competitive communities, it can hurt. Like, really and truly, I think matchmaking kind of hurt Halo 2 and Halo 3 and everything a good bit because, where you really get the social aspect out of the game, out of a competitive shooter, being, growing relationships with players socially on the game is through like custom games, on Halo, and through server browsing on like how Rainbow Six was and Ghost Recon, Splinter Cell, But do y'all see being able to actually use a spare console as a dedicated server, possibly?
I'd have to look into that. I don't know.
Okay, I was just asking because I actually bought a spare Xbox. I had many Xboxes when I was back in those days, but I had one specifically and I had my own Xbox Live account for it to host dedicated servers for my plan. But on the game, are y'all, the direction that y'all are taking, are y'all really trying to go towards a competitive direction? Like, is that what you are trying to go for besides the story mode, but it's the multiplayer aspect? Are you directing it to the competitive scene?
Well, yeah, I think so. It's a little bit of a loaded question because a lot of people think of competitive gamers and they think of honestly Call of Duty gamers or Halo gamers, but I think that the gameplay is independent of that. And competitive, where I see competitive gaming going is a feature set that, allows people to, obviously, kick cheaters or organize clans, organize games, find each other, and actually play, form groups. And, that's one of the reasons that we've been talking with MLG is to, find out what kind of feature set that group of, competitive people want to see, so that we can support those gamers. I would consider myself, back in the day, a competitive Rogue Spear player. I never really got out into the kind of leagues or any of the real competitive scene, but I was pretty freaking good at it.
Back in those days, like, that stuff was in like baby stage, like it
Yeah.
because it was so early. It's like those kind of games were like before their time, really and truly, in my opinion.
Right,
But
right. And so, just having the feature set of people that, want to play competitively. But I also don't want people to think that, a lot of people they'll hear competitive gaming and they think it needs to be super fast paced and I need to be able to run around and, kill streak people. And to me, that's not what competition is. It's a framework within the core gameplay that the game is, being good at it. Just because you're good at Halo doesn't mean you're going to be good at Takedown, and just because you're good at Takedown doesn't mean you're going to be good at Halo.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think the only people that could be, decent at a game like this, would be players that played like Counter-Strike, I think that's the only pro players nowadays that could make a changeover. I mean, it'd be very difficult because a lot of Halo players are used to this run and gun style, and this is if it's like anything like how Ghost Recon and Rainbow Six, if it turns into such a beautiful creation like those games, it's gonna be the tactical genre will be revived once again, in my opinion.
Well,
it's been needing it.
That's the goal. And from a development standpoint and an audience standpoint, I mean, one of the arguments I used to have when I used to argue with publishers about Ghost Recon back in the day is, the reason why I think even Ghost Recon 2, even stepping away from the franchise, stayed high on the charts is that, you could go play Halo and have one experience and then go play it, GR and have a different experience. Whereas today, if you're choosing between Halo and Call of Duty, they're very similar experiences, and so providing a different experience to those players even the players that want to just one afternoon or evening they just want to jump in a Banshee and fly around and run into people, they can have a blast. But if they want a different experience, they can jump into Takedown and have something that stands apart from those other games. And I think that's what we're looking to provide, and I think that's what gamers want, and I think that's why people have spoken so loud that they want something different that harkens back to those older games.
Yes. Another question of mine. I think you somewhat sort of answered it on a video that I saw, but I kind of want to get my confirmation. Like statistics, I know you are doing some kind of level system, but statistics-wise, are we going to have, are the servers going to be able to keep up with our kills and deaths, or anything like that, similar to how Rainbow Six was?
We should have
keep up
some
with the hours of play that we had.
We will definitely have some kind of stat tracking to allow you to what you've done. Statistics and stat tracking, you have to be really careful with them as a developer, and the reason for that is because if you pick an arbitrary statistic like, say, kill-death ratio, and kind of put that up at front, much like in Halo, KD is right up there. You get your level and you get your KD, and people will tend to play to that ratio. And one of the things in a game like ours, more of a team-based tactical game, is that you can totally win for your team without getting any kills. If you're the guy that's hucking flashbangs all over and stuns the whole entire other team, and then your team goes in and wipes them all out, you might not get any kills. You still won the round and you helped out your team. But of course, trying to quantify that, of the, hey, you're the guy that really helped out your team and made them win. Or, you could be the guy, you come back to a game like this, a lot of people say, well, hit percentage, your accuracy percentage. Well, what if you're the guy that takes a
pre-fires for for a good,
exactly.
Solid 10 seconds down the hallway.
Yeah, that just lays down suppression fire for the rest of the team so that they can do things. Well, your hit percentage is going to suck compared to the sniper. And so a lot of those statistics, things like, matches played and matches won and hours played, you really have to put those statistics through beta testing out to people and see how they react to it. Same with things like achievements, because you can never know. I mean, even if you just say, matches won versus matches lost, well, some people really want to win, so they might just, as soon as they realize the rest of their team isn't doing good, they drop the game, and then they've hurt other people, and it's like, well, does that count as a loss? All those kinds of problems.
I understand. I see what you're saying. I mean, I agree in ways because, I mean, everyone on a team, whenever it's on the competitive game, and you're playing in a match, everyone has their own roles. And, I mean, some roles or just to sit back and direct people on when they should take a different route to flank, or learning how to retreat at a right advantage point, and giving those kind of opportunities to your teammates in case they get in a bad situation. When we get into the competitive gameplay, what do you think is going to become the standard game type for competitive play? Like, what game type, if you were going to say put into a tournament, what game type would you want in a tournament? Would it be a respawn like game type? Because I mean, the older games, like Rainbow Six 3 and Ghost Recon, is really, it's really based upon a lot of just only one life. It's no respawn. Would you think respawn would work well in this game, or are y'all going to a no respawn direction?
We're focusing on no respawn. That's
Okay.
our primary mode of development. If we do add respawns, it would be more of a secondary alternative game type. Like if I had to pick one mode out of the ones that we're looking at right now, it would be more of a, I would think of it more of a round-based attack defend, no respawn mode. So one team is defending, one team is attacking. Much like game type like Siege or Blind Siege in Ghost. In fact, that's how I used to play it. They didn't have the exact type in Rogue. They had like a double attack defend where each team had a bomb, but we'd play an honor system where one team would attack and one team would defend. And the thing I like about that is there's a lot of tactics that go along with that. It's not just kind of everybody run around until everybody's dead, and it with attack defend it doesn't support one guy going off and hiding somewhere and trying to run the counter down. It's got a clear end, and it supports lots of different tactics, whether it's more rush tactics or taking it slow and using things like flashbangs to go in and clear, to disarm the bomb or whatever the type of objective may be.
Yeah.
And so those that's like, if I had to pick one out of the list that we have right now, that would be one that I would pick. Would be a kind of an attack defend round based no respawn mode.
Okay. I remember on Rainbow Six 3 and Black Arrow, I believe it was Black Arrow. They put in the team deathmatch game type, but then they also put in I believe it was like a canister game type, which you ran around with a canister and you had to bring it to their you had to go get it from the middle map and bring it to their map, or their spawn, into the canister. And no, to your spawn, actually. Yeah, that's what it was. But it was very crazy, because it had a lot of tactics go into it, because you had to like give your runner, your scout, you'd have to give your scout, pre-fire. Then he would get the canister and hide, and you would give him more pre-fire, and then you would tell him to run back and give him more pre-fire then. There was a lot of tactics that went down in this. And then they also had a where you upholded like 3 little satellites around the map, and there was a lot of crazy tactics going along with that also.
Yeah, there's a lot of options that you can get with some of those kind of more domination or capture the flag modes. I mean, we're focused in nailing the classics first, kind of team deathmatch, the solo play, obviously co-op, and the attack defend scenarios. But we also want to have game modes for smaller groups as well. One of the ones we're looking at is one I designed a long time ago that never really made it into a game, called Manhunt, where it's pretty much optimized for 3 to 5 players, where you'll have 2 to 3 versus 1, where the one player gets to go out, you can pick any weapon, get some lead time, and then the other 2 people can only use unsuppressed or loud weapons, and they have to basically hunt him down in a certain amount of time.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's like playing President. What we used to play in Rainbow Six. We'd let a guy run. We'd put everybody on one team and let one guy run, and he would run around with the 50 cal sniper rifle, when you could shoot them in the big toe and they would die.
Yeah,
and we would all use 9.2 FSs, I believe, to try to kill them.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those modes, it can get into the fun, crazy version, but, game modes that, even on larger maps are fun for small amounts of people, I think is really important and something that isn't supported a lot in kind of, more modern game modes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool that you're thinking about that also. That'd be, good late night when nobody's on and you only got a few guys in the lobby.
Well, yeah, especially online, if you only got like 3 or 4 people with you, you don't necessarily want to go out and get 8 other randoms to come in. Maybe you just want to play with your 4 buddies and have a good time.
Yeah. I'm Another thing I'm wondering, uh you said in the video about clan ladders, you're looking to support them. Are y'all still looking? Is that still going to be set in stone?
Well, I mean, clan support in general is something that we want to have. We think clans are very important, and how much support as far as functionality we have in-game versus, leaning on external services to provide that support is something that we're still looking at. We definitely want to support clans in-game, at the very, least allow people to have the labels and stuff like that.
Okay, so tags. But
yeah, exactly. But as far as in-game ladder systems, it's all going to depend on, whether we partner with external partners like MLG, whether we look at some of the external services,
okay.
People that especially if you use the external services, need to come let us know what kind of services that they want to see and what kind of features that they want to see. It's all a matter of scope for us.
If y'all partner with MLG, I hope they actually do it right, because that thing with when they hosted Rainbow Six Vegas 1 and 2 is they use team deathmatch game types and respawn game types, and really and truly the game is just not meant to be played that way. It's meant to be played where everyone has one life, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. And
well, that's the point of talking with someone like MLG and the various different services, is to let them know both what features they need and what, kind of gameplay that we want to support.
Yeah, it should be no respawn. I hope they support that. I mean, a question on weapons customization. You said you'll be able to put one attachment onto the gun. Is that one attachment in each place where, like, the barrel, the scope, and your clip? Or is it you would have to choose between those 3 areas of attachments?
No, it would be one attachment per point that you have an attachment. Okay. So, for example, if you had your optics as one attachment point, your barrel as one attachment point, and a magazine as attachment point, you would be able to choose whether you want to have on the optics, a red dot, a Trijicon, or full scope, or possibly a thermal or a night vision. And then on the barrel, would you want to have a suppressor, possibly different flash hiders? On the magazine, would you want to have a standard mag? Even for an AR, you could have a, say, 30 round mag, a 60 round, like the Surefire mags, or the 100 round Beta C mag, and those various different options are going to affect how the weapon handles. So it's not like in Raven Shield where you get to choose between a suppressor or optics, because that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that way, but for some reason they did that.
It might have been a UI thing. It might have been a balancing thing of trying to make the weapons more balanced. But even if you look at Raven Shield at the weapons, what it does is lean you towards weapons like the G36K that had a red dot built in. So you got your red dot for free, and then so you could have a suppressor and a red dot. And then it was, one of the few weapons, or the AUG, you could have a scope and a suppressor, and then all of a sudden now your weapons are unbalanced because of I don't honestly know. I mean, I was at Red Storm when they were working on that, and it was some of the feedback I had to Montreal, and I don't know why that decision was made. Part of it's testing. It makes things simpler if you just have one attachment, but it doesn't. I'd rather have no attachments and just choose between the different weapons with them functional.
Yeah, I remember back in on Rainbow Six 3 and Black Arrow being really, I choose my gun on how it shot and what type of scope it had. Like, I didn't even care really at how big the bullet was then, or like or just how hard it hit people, how much health it took off when it you shot them. I just cared about how slow of a shot it had, and I cared about just how good of a strobe it was, how nice and clean the strobe looked. I wasn't a big fan of how like the red strobes were on. I believe it was the what was it? But yeah, there was one gun with a red strobe, and it was I couldn't do the red strobe, so I turned to the G360 then, and it had such a slow rate fire. But even before that, I wasn't a very good aim, and I used the L85. Yeah, and it had such a zoom strobe, so I could be able to aim real good. Then I didn't have to, I didn't have to concentrate so much. I could just blow them away. But as my skill got better, I used the G360. But that's interesting to know. That's real good to know on how the customization of the guns is going to be. Another thing I have a question on is on maps. What are you looking at on like maps? Are we going to see maps very similar? I mean, I wouldn't say, ripping off like Rainbow Six, but in those style, are we going to see that close quarter style of gameplay? Are we going to see more of like outdoorsy type maps like peaks and maps kind of like how you see on Ghost Recon, outdoorsy type maps?
Well, definitely CQB is our focus. So, the current map that we're working on is more of a bioweapons facility. So if you imagine, what a bioweapons lab would feel like with, different chambers and laboratories.
Sounds like a rocket facility.
There's a park.
Rocket facility.
Yeah, there could be. Yeah. So, that's our focus. That doesn't mean that you can't have larger exterior maps like something like a oil rig or a construction yard or something like that to get some room for the longer ranges out there. But if you're thinking about something like Peaks from GR2, which is a gigantic map, that's really outside of that's much larger than what we're talking about for Takedown.
Okay, all right. There was also a Peaks on Rainbow Six 3. That's the one that I was actually talking about.
Oh, okay. I'd have to go look at that one, but
yeah. Well, that's also a very big open map, but the map is in the night, so you can hardly like see people, and it's very interesting. Like people, there was a team called Living Legends back in the day, and they figured out where to stand and where to throw grenades, like at spawn, to and where they would hit by. People usually rush, you're rushing in the beginning to try to gain good position, and they figured out where the nades would land to meet right where they should be walking at, if they were rushing. Yeah, it was, we figured that out on another map also on training with Matland that I had. But, there's a lot of strategies involved. I have another question on map designs. Are y'all gonna have any like invisible walls in case one thing to be thinking about, like if you can throw a grenade over a building, some games put up invisible walls, so when you try to throw it over a building, it's this wall that you can't, it's like there shouldn't be a wall there because we could throw the grenade over the building and maybe have a good grenade trick against the enemy if they're rushing, in the beginning of the round. Are y'all going to have anything like that, or are y'all making it completely, anything goes?
No, if you can get a grenade over the building, then you deserve to get whatever kill that and if the map is broken by people throwing grenades over the building, then maybe the map level designer should make the building taller. It's like, don't fall back on artificial constraints to try to limit gameplay. I mean, we all know that even in the run and gun games, again, coming back to Halo and, some of the things I've seen in Battlefield, where physics are going on and people do crazy shit. That's where the cool videos come out of, is one guy gets that lucky throw that goes all the way across the map and lands in some perfect little space and then kills someone. It's like, that's when it gets awesome. So.
Have you seen the videos on Battlefield 3 where the people are flying like jets and they eject and they like snipe the guy that's chasing them in their jet?
Yeah, that's specifically the one I was thinking of. Yeah, it was badass.
We on Airport 1 it was on Rainbow Six 3, you could throw a grenade, like you spawned right at spawn, and there was the roof where you could throw the grenade over the suicide room where the teams met real quick. and the other team is rushing to try to, get there. And actually, it's pretty cool because you can throw the grenade right over the building, and it lands like right in the face of them at the doorway they're about to go through. Like it's to rush to get meet up at the choke point. But another thing I have a question on is what do you see the difference between like Takedown and like how do you compare Takedown to like Ghost Recon and Rainbow Six, and like what kind of gameplay is just going to be different? Is it going to be like, reliving what we had back then, or is it a new type of gameplay that we're getting into?
Well, it's definitely a new game in that, we're bringing a lot of the advancements that have come in user interface design and feedback that just didn't exist back then. So, clunky menus, clunky interface systems. If you look at, especially, I was looking at SWAT and long menu lists of trying to order guys around, how contextual actions work and contextual order systems, like all those things that have, advanced in game development over the years. We want to bring that to the table. So when I'm looking at an order system and I'm bringing the experience of, having worked on several different both contextual and non-contextual order systems in Ghost, and even some order system stuff that I worked on Halo Reach and other games. Bringing that to the table, obviously AI is a huge focus for us to, bring a top-of-the-line AI in. But, I wouldn't say that, we're not just cloning, pick one of those games and just cloning it. When I say spiritual successor, Takedown is its own game. It'll make its own decisions, comes back, like I was talking about with the weapon attachments, making the decisions that are right for the game. I'm designing the weapon recoil and accuracy system, actually based it on an unused design that I developed for a non-shipped Ghost Recon that got canceled. And if you look at GRAW 2 back to Rainbow Six, they all used exactly the same reticle system. From Rainbow Six 1 to Ghost Recon PC to all the way out to GRAW 2 on the 360. And that recoil system, while it was revolutionary at the time and allowed a lot of control and the gameplay that we remember, it also had some pretty severe limitations. Where if you've ever played with someone with a 50 cal sniper rifle in GRAW 2, you'll understand the limitations of that system. And so, bringing a new system to the game, both on things like AI aiming, recoil accuracy, the learnings that I've had over the past decade working in these kinds of games, to have a really solid standalone experience in Takedown.
Okay, all right. This sounds beautiful. Another thing I'd like to, you're going with the lean cover system, right? That's what's set in stone?
Yeah. Lean peak, no sticky cover. No sticky third-person glue cover.
Okay, that's great. It's not going to be like how... Have you seen the Far Cry 3 cover system?
I have not.
It's the closest thing that Ubisoft could make that's similar to how Rainbow Six 3 was. You stick to it with like your front side. Like it's not, your guy doesn't automatically turn around, and put his back to the cover.
Yeah, Ubisoft has had lots of experience working in cover systems, and I worked on multiple cover systems for a long time, and I still haven't seen it done right. So if people with that amount of money and development time can't nail it, then there should be no expectation that we as a small team are going to be able to do it. And honestly, why spend the time and effort when nobody really wants it anyway? Yeah, I know.
I'm hoping that I don't want anyone to try that, because it's just way... we're not ready for it. It's not ready yet. It won't be ready for a long time. Technology is not that advanced yet.
Yeah, but, it works great in Gears, and it, Gears can do what Gears does. Yeah. Chainsaw dudes in half and cover system. It's awesome.
Gears is a game of its own. It can't really compare to. Yeah.
I agree.
But on the lean, are you gonna be able to sidestep or move any like how you did in R3, Rainbow Six 3? Whenever you could like on the joystick, if you barely move the joystick. I don't know how it was on PC because I didn't really play on PC because it's complicated. But on the joystick, you barely move the joystick, just barely. You slowly and you can walk. But if you move it too much, you would pop out of the lean. It was a little glitch that we found.
Yeah, that
Oh,
on PC, because the way controller inputs work on PC, if I remember correctly, you
I
could
think I
move.
would like lean repeatedly over and over. I've seen videos of how
Well,
they played on Rogue Spear.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Rogue Spear was a little wonky. On Raven Shield, I'm pretty sure you could sidestep in the direction that you were leaning,
Okay.
so that you could lean in and then you could kind of shift over and then lean again.
Okay. Yeah.
So the nice thing about PC is that because you're using a button input to run, not a stick input, it's a lot easier to do things like that. So what you were probably experiencing, and I've dealt with this on console, is what you have your percentage of stick input. So you say 0 to 40% is walk, and 50% and plus is run. And the problem is controllers get wore out, and so those windows have to be really sloppy. Whereas on a PC, because it's a button press, it's a lot easier to control.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of differences that you run into when you go from a PC to console and back and forth. And those are one of the reasons why you do things like gamepad support on PCs, because you learn that kind of information of like, oh, this doesn't work on sticks. And so, do we have that available on consoles? It's not like we're going to cut it from PC because it doesn't work on a gamepad, but sometimes there might need to be different interfaces, whether it's a button push or something on the console, and to allow that kind of stuff. But I mean, in general, yeah, like you wouldn't be able to sprint lean, but or run lean, but you should be able to shuffle over and
shuffle over. Okay, all right. Yeah, that's one it really helps a lot. I'm just being able to adjust, your coverage, it's so crucial.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in real life, it's really not that hard to walk up and peek around a corner, and so you should try to make those kind of movements fluid and easy for the player, and that's part of modern UX design is get that so you don't feel it doesn't feel clunky, it feels smooth, it feels good, because just because something's realistic and tactical, a lot of people think that means clunky, and I totally disagree with that.
Are we going to be able to go prone? I think we asked that once before in the interview before that, but going prone, or do you think that puts too much of an advantage to being able to hide?
Prone's still up in the air, and there's a huge thread about it, and a lot of people have let us know what we thought. Prone, honestly, is not in my opinion, a gameplay decision. It's a scope decision, and what that means is that I don't have any problem supporting prone from a gameplay perspective. I don't because the negatives that go along with prone, as far as limited, movement capability and angle of shot and things like that. There's pluses and minuses, and there's some beautiful Ghost Recon 2. Videos of the prone sniper where the other guy comes up and puts a claymore behind him because he can't just spin around on his whatever pivot you would have.
It's kind of funny, like on Battlefield 3 when you go prone, like sometimes your legs will be sticking out of the room into another room, and people can shoot you and kill you. Like
that comes down to the scope issue. Is that prone is honestly, from a development standpoint, it's a pain in the ass because you're taking a vertical character and making him horizontal, and there's all sorts of bugs associated with it. It's much easier in a game like Ghost Recon where you generally have plenty of room for the player. The physics pill can invert whatever 90 degrees. In a more tighter space, you run into a lot of problems with prone, and so we got to evaluate it from a scope perspective. One, what are the bugs that are associated with it, and how many problems in development are going to implement it? And then two, just how useful is it in the game in general? Will it be something that's worth our development time? And that's really what it comes down to.
Okay. Another question of mine is like character inventory. Like, are we going to be seeing are we going to be seeing I would say like, is it unlimited? Like, okay, Rainbow Six 3, you can carry like 8 grenades, and then you could like all your ammo, all your inventory slots, you could put grenades in, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But when Vegas came out, they completely done away with that and said you could only have like, I think it was like 4 grenades, maybe. Yeah, it was 4, and then you had to fill the other slots up with other things. Like
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't fill all your slots up with, certain grenades.
Right. Right.
You couldn't like get all frags because back in the day, like in the gameplay, like frags were very crucial, but also Molotovs were crucial in certain ways, and flashes were crucial in other ways. It depended on what map you were on and the situation. Are we gonna see like you be able to fill up all your slots with one thing?
The way we're currently thinking of it as basically, the initial design is basically a primary slot, a secondary slot, and then 2 equipment slots. So, you'd have multiple grenades per each of those equipment slots, and you may be able to fill them with extra mags as well, or various equipments, noise detractors and breaching charges and things like that. So that's kind of the basic, and then we would determine how many grenades fit in each one of those slots. So it may be that you could carry, flash and frags, or, we could also break that down into multiple slots. That's pretty easy to do.
Okay.
Play testing is going to lead to that, but we wouldn't, if we had a slot, we wouldn't say you can only take flashbangs in this one and frags in the other one. If we needed to limit that amount to say, if we wanted to say that the max grenades, because if you think about the amount of space that a frag grenade takes up and weight compared to a flashbang, they're pretty much the same. So it doesn't make any sense for us to say like, well, you can carry 2 flashbangs and 2 frags, but you can't carry 4 frags. If we're going to allow you to carry 4 grenades, it's going to be, however combination of frags, flashbangs, stingy ball grenades, tear gas, whatever the various different types are.
Are there going to be Molotovs? Just wondering. That's kind of crazy sounding, but
no, it's not. Honestly, Molotovs would be extremely low on the development list because fire is such a pain in the ass.
Okay, all right.
Fire is very hard to do convincingly, and so what we would look at would be a great comparison to Molotovs would be something like the taser. So, a lot of the SWAT players are really interested in non-lethal weapons and, being able to tase people. Well, the taser itself is kind of from a development standpoint, it's kind of complicated because you have this weapon that shoots out little wires that stick into a dude and then he, gets electrocuted and falls down. Well, if you want to be realistic, well, what happens if someone walks between you and the taser, and does it pull the little wires out? Well, that's, a lot of complication. But if you just have taser rounds for your shotgun, which exists now, they're just a shotgun shell that you could, carry maybe a secondary.
Okay. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and then you're just shooting them like regular bullets. And so from a development standpoint, all then you're doing is the gameplay effect of the dude getting electrocuted. Now, of course, if he's wearing a level 3 ballistic vest and you shoot him in the chest, then the taser round isn't going to do anything. But if he's if you shoot him in the face and he's a hostage, it could kill him. Those kinds of something like Molotov. What you're really looking for is, a wide dispersal area damage effect weapon that's persistent for a little while.
Okay.
And so are there other alternatives that don't necessarily need us to be spreading liquid fire all over the level?
Okay. What about Willie Pete grenades? Are we gonna see those? The ones that are we gonna see any fire? Are we gonna see fire or no?
Probably not. I would keep fire to a minimum. I mean, white phosphorus. I would love to see. I've seen white phosphorus go off, and I doubt any game has accurately replicated what white phosphorus would do in an enclosed environment. I know I wouldn't want to be near it. I don't want to throw white phosphorus grenades around anywhere at all. Period.
One concern of mine was if there was going to be fire, like in Rainbow Six 3, when you would catch on fire and you were out of bullets, you couldn't reload because the animation of your character, he was patting himself down while he was on fire to try to put the fire out so that he wouldn't lose any more bars, And because of that, you can't reload, and it's just really. I mean, it's kind of funny because you can let somebody shoot at you the whole time and get them almost out of bullets and then throw a Willie Pete at him, and he can't shoot you because he's patting himself down because he can't reload, And it was a pretty good counter. at
Yeah,
times.
but if someone got hit with a white phosphorus grenade, they're not going to be patting themselves down. They're going to be melting through to their bones.
Well, yeah. I understand. It was just, well, it still is a video game, you know.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
those,
the thing on all those things is like we're focused on the core gameplay. So fire is something that just is a lot of development for not a lot of win.
okay then, all right. It was just, I was just, wondering that if y'all were gonna, go into that kind of, direction in any way. Oh goodness, man. I mean, this is sounding really, really good. When it comes to Takedown, I mean, what how what are you predicting, on the result of all this? I mean, what are you shooting for? Are you trying to compete with like sales of like Call of Duty, or are you just trying to bring the dream back and seeing if it'll lift off,
No, I mean that's a really good question, because that's part of the concern when people ask about this game is like everybody kind of asks this, like, well, wait a minute, there's a reason why some people say, well, the reason why these games have died is because they can't compete with something like Halo or Call of Duty, and it's like, well, I'd argue that they can, but what we're doing both from a budget and development standpoint is focusing on a smaller audience. So looking at games like Torchlight, Red Orchestra, Sins of a Solar Empire, Killing Floor, games that focus on audience. And,
you ever play Operation Flashpoint?
Back in the day, I played the original PC one. Yeah, I don't know if I ever checked out the console version.
I never played the original PC, but the console versions were very beautiful. But the sad thing is online they went in a weird direction where you could control bots, and it really I think it really hurt the limited the game. It hurt the game a lot. It would have been awesome if they could just do 16 versus 16 PvP on console,
Yeah, but we're focusing on a reasonable reasonable amount of sales, a reasonable market, and that's the key. Is that great if it blows up and does awesome, that's cool. But if we start making financial and development decisions where we're trying to compete with the big boys, that's just, it doesn't make sense from a development standpoint. It doesn't make sense from a business standpoint. But also, as soon as we start doing that, comes back to scope. People, well, it's got to look like this, and it's got to have awesome water effects, and it's like, we're about the gameplay, and we're going to get that right. And if we get the gameplay right, then the game will do good.
This is going to be a revival.
That's the plan.
Yeah. All right, Josh.
All right. Got anything else that you would like to say in closing or to the fans, Christian?
No, I mean, the biggest thing is, you can pull up our company values online. It's on our website. Our website's Serellan.com. You can follow me at Serellan, and we've got at takedownthegame.com. You can log into the forums and be part of the discussion. But if you take a moment to go to the site and pull up those company values, you really see both what the game's about and what the company's about. And it really is about, the kind of the four key pillars for us as a company is transparency, gameplay first, work-life balance, and then community. And community is a huge thing for us. And we don't just mean when we say community, the Kickstarters or the people on our forums, those people are really important as well. But just the, fans of this genre in general, we want to hear from you guys. I know, for some people, signing up for a forum is tough, but, feel free to tweet at me, ideas and thoughts and things like that, and get involved and let your friends know about the game. The more people that know, even at this point, the better. But we really do. We have weekly Q&As. We answer questions. We post up a lot of content on our forums and our website, and then I'll tweet that stuff out. We try to be as transparent as possible and answer as many questions as possible. Whether it's to the indie game kind of interview community like yourselves, or inside the forums, because we believe that community is one of the most important things. Aside from making a good game, we need people to play it.
Yes, indeed.
Very nice. Well, everybody, since you're already here, you might as well check out our YouTube channel and be sure to visit TinkTink.org for all of your gaming needs. Also, be sure to check out Serellan.com for news on Takedown. And special thanks to Christian Allen for talking with us again.
Thank you very much.
No problem, no problem. This has been Josh Wilson with my co-host Chase Guidry, and as always, thanks for listening to TinkTink.org interviews.